everybody.
Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Happy New Year.
Woo.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's Boss Barrel Radio. We're going to talk about some video games. My name is Griffin Hoffman. With me is Jeff Brewer.
Hello.
And James Scherer.
Howdy.
It is time for the end of the year. It's time for the year to end. It's time to end this year.
Yes, please. Don't mind if I do.
And when we do that, we got to talk about all the good things this year, and they were only video games. So
That's probably objectively true.
so we're going to talk about our favorite games of 2018.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I feel like Griffin, you've got the keys to the castle on this one. You're gonna drive this runaway train.
The castle
somewhere.
is a train, and it has wheels, and it's also in the sky. And
I have
it's
a
also
list.
Mobile.
I may have made a list approximately 20 minutes ago in a sleep-induced haze of games that I played that weren't terrible.
Oh, you're putting Haze on your list. Bold.
It's a perennial classic, man. Is that the one that has the guy in the yellow
It has the
visor
nectar
helmet on it?
and the corn songs.
It has corn songs in it?
Or Slipknot, or
Ooh.
I don't know, something about sickness.
Get up, come on, get down with the sickness? That one?
Probably, I don't know, man.
Open up your hate and let it flow into me?
Yep, that one.
Your mother,
That's
get
what-
up, come on, get down with the sickness.
Oh, the radio edit.
I feel like I may have played the demo for Haze.
So radio edit made me think. I did too, Jeff. Jamie, when we were talking, my vinyl interest has been piqued. I was looking online and I found the best. I don't know what you call it, like a single or whatever it is, where it's just one song on one side, one song on the other side, and it was. I was looking for Weird Al vinyl, and surprisingly,
Very good.
Not super prevalent.
That's so weird.
It certainly is.
The analog Weird Al experience really trumps the digital.
But the best thing I found when searching for Weird Al was Stan Bush's "The Touch" and Weird Al's "Dare to Be Stupid," which then immediately made me realize I need to get the soundtrack from the 1986 Transformer movie so I can get all of that goodness.
Nice.
Is Dare to
one
Be Stupid
location.
on the 1986 Transformers?
Are you kidding me?
I haven't watched it.
Why
Griffin,
not?
because I'm uncultured, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's in that movie.
I heard Bumblebee
It's-
was good.
Whatever.
It has like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It does. That's great. I'm interested in
Is
how
Chloe
it's
Grace
not
Moretz, Chloe Grace Moretz?
What are you
Moe
saying?
Chase Goretz?
What is
Chloe
happening?
Grace Moretz in it? I think she might be. Zoe Chase from This American Life. So that has a Weird Al song in it. I had no idea.
Oh yeah, "Dare to Be Stupid" is a Weird Al song.
Did you know
I
that
know
they can
that
put
song.
video on vinyl? There are videos on vinyl.
Did you know they can put video on disc and you can read it with lasers? It's revolutionizing 1990s classrooms across the country.
In the words of Tim Rogers, "Are you joking my eyes out right now?
That's a good delivery.
that a
That's
lot.
good Tim
Are you
Rogers delivery.
joking my eyes out right now?" I can't do
You
it.
need
good
to sound
Tim
a little
Rogers.
more disaffected.
Yeah,
Are you
first one was
joking
good.
my eyes out right now?
There you go.
All right, let's talk video games.
Yeah, choke me out. Let's play some video games.
Did you say choke me out?
That's
Choke
a
my-
very different.
choke
That's
my
the
eyes out.
podcast you record after this one. the
Oh, yeah,
After
yeah.
Dark.
The B side, right? Yeah.
Oh, flash forward.
The beat
If you're
side.
a premium subscriber, stay tuned after the podcast for the Choke Me Out special.
For the raunchy outtakes.
You know that with Libsyn we can actually do like limited podcasts that have limited runs and or restricted availability.
We should just
Like
do that
Red
with
Band?
all of these.
Can we have the Red Band Boss Barrel Radio?
Yeah. Oh, the one where I don't edit it at all.
You mean all of them?
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. You do God's work, Griffin.
I usually don't, but I appreciate it.
I was going to say, you cut out all of my flatulence.
Just like that one. Just and that one.
Just like that one, and that one,
that one.
and that one, and that one.
All right, writing the numbers down here.
605,
Note to
33.
self. Yeah.
I wanted to
minutes
tell you
after
guys
clap.
before we start. I wanted to tell you guys today I cleaned out like a lot of boxes, and not just from this Christmas, but from many Christmases for many years. So in the recycling that
I got
today,
a question. You said you cleaned out a lot of boxes since we're on the explicit version. I thought you were going into psychology, not gynecology.
It's very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Oh no!
Oh man.
That was a very
And
alarming
then
visual.
remove that
So-
from the podcast.
So I put out today, the City of Summit collected from my house the following boxes. A box for A, PlayStation 3, 40 gigabyte, old OG. A PlayStation 3, white, top loader, classic, 500 gigabyte. A PlayStation 4, OG. A PlayStation 4 Pro, OG. A Nintendo Wii, a Nintendo Switch, a PlayStation Vita OG, and a PlayStation Vita Slim.
How are you going to
those
sell all
boxes-
those on Craigslist now? You dummy.
So you basically put a target on yourself saying, rob me, please.
No, I thought what it was, I thought I was just going to confuse the guys, confuse the garbage people. Like maybe they thought
Are you saying the
I
garbage
needed
people
all
are
the
very low
systems.
intellect?
Why do you call
Why
it
are
garbage
these
people?
boxes
That's really
empty?
rude.
I collect trash for a living, but I don't understand a cardboard box with nothing in it.
I was thinking that they would think that my family thought that you couldn't just buy one of these bad boys. And you need to like buy them all and like connect them up or else it doesn't work.
Oh,
Do you
yeah,
think
the
they
cell
imagined
processor.
Yeah.
That you were like the N64 kid on Christmas, except with all of those?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Anyway, that's my story. It went in a lot of good directions that I'm really proud of, and I think I really added to the podcast, so I'm
I
happy
think so
about
too.
it. Yeah.
Griffin's just going to edit out the first 10 minutes of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to a video game.
No, that's a good thing, though. I mean, like, I did that a couple years, too, ago when I cleaned up a bunch of stuff out of the attic, like a bunch of boxes where I'm like, I don't need this Fight Stick box or the PlayStation 3 box. And I think I probably cut the, I don't know, whatever, like the security code out of it to get my 10 free DVDs or whatever. Blu-rays.
DMDs.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's good. It's the step in the right
It's a
direction.
good feeling. Yeah.
I invariably throw out my iPad boxes like a month to the day before some new iteration comes out that I feel like I need to buy. And then I'm like, no, why did I do that? Amazon would have given me $10 more.
Really? You
I
have
don't
the
know.
box?
There have been circumstances where not having the boxes shot me in the foot.
Do you trade
Really?
in stuff on Amazon? I've never done that.
I've done it before. I've also Craigslisted. People like boxes.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Let's do it.
Let's do some video games.
Yes, let's do it. So somehow we're going to talk about some video games this year if we haven't done so already. Point of this is just to kind of discuss our faves.
All right.
I think that maybe the thing to do is, I mean, I don't want to start the show with the showstopper because obviously we didn't with all that dumbassery. But I think there's something to be
Dumb-applery?
said for just kind of jumping into what was your like couple top favorites.
Yeah.
Listening to a bunch of Game of the Year podcasts this year myself, the build up to the number one has been incredibly tedious. So, in reaction, let's flip it on its ear.
Love it.
Cool. So, what's your favorite game this year, guys?
Jeff, go. Begin.
I'm gonna say
Kick it off.
Oh, I'm gonna say probably Celeste is my favorite game this year.
Cool.
There's a lot of, I feel like, and just to kind of add to your kind of notion of the tedium of lists, I feel like Celeste sticks in my mind, and it touched me in a way that maybe other games this year didn't quite, but it also like is one of several games this year that I really cherished, and I'm putting it at the top of the list, but it feels kind of arbitrary.
And now so we enjoyed, Celeste was, if I had to rank, Celeste would be my number one game of the year too. But you
Wow.
and I think, enjoyed Celeste in very different ways. I got a lot of the extras, but I did not nearly get all of them, which you definitely did. And
Yes.
and I felt like Celeste is a complete package, even if you don't take any of the extras into account. So in my mind, if you just play Celeste from start to finish without getting all the strawberries, without doing the extra world, that in of itself is like enough to put it at the top of my list. And I can't really explain why that is. It's probably a weird confluence of the music and like how streamlined and beautiful the story is, even though it's fairly sparse. And I really couldn't tell you exactly why. I do think it's one of, if not the best feeling platformer in recent memory. But it's one of those games that I think is just definitely more than the sum of its parts.
I 100% agree. I was going to use that exact tired analogy or whatever.
Great minds.
Not analogy, but metaphor. Yeah, it's like it is, you know, mechanically fantastic, but it also is surprisingly affecting, and like I still listen to the music. Everything surrounding that game hits like a note for me that is important. Like the story is about mental illness. In a way that doesn't feel dumb, which I think is really hard in the world of video games.
Yep.
It actually like cribs pretty closely from a therapeutic approach that I have used or have engaged with in my own treatment, which is interesting. Yeah, it's just good in a lot of ways.
So they put
polished.
Jeff at the base of a mountain with nothing. And he hallucinated a brown lover on the mountain. And then he ran from a ghost.
Yeah, it's just right in a lot of ways. And I agree, Jamie. It's really hard to articulate precisely why it scores so highly for me and why it's so important to me, but it is. And
I think one of the things that is so interesting to me is I do love the music, and I love the music on its own. I listen to it on its own. But I get this sense every time I listen to the soundtrack, and I'm like, well, this doesn't sound as good as I remember it. And I still enjoy it, but the only time that soundtrack sounds as good as it should is when you're playing the game. And like the only time that the game is as fun as it should be is when you're playing with sound. You know, like if you're, so it's like all those little things coming together really make it kind of
JB, that's perfect that you said that. I was actually going to ask for like what is one of your guys' favorite tracks from the game, so I can insert it, because just yesterday while I was working, I was listening to the Celeste soundtrack, and I was like, oh, this is all good, but not in a bad way, but like nothing jumped out at me like, oh, this is a transcendent track that has like making me feel all these feelings. So do you have a specific song that you really like?
For me, it's the track from the very first level.
Yes, First Steps. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, First Steps is definitely the best, but I think like a lot of the motifs repeat and change slightly, and I think that's part of its charm as well. Other songs that stick out to me is, the level with the Ghost Library, and that's a good one. And there are definitely others, but I think that first, the game really just pulls you in from the beginning, in part because of that song. I think
it's such a great beginning song because it's got like that kind of peppiness of like starting a journey, but it's also like evocative and mysterious. It has just like a slight undertone of like kind of strife and struggle, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that song actually kind of comes back in the last, like the Climbing the Mountain song. That song is like a combination of every motif in the game. So like you go to all these different places, and then just to kind of give a quick version of the game without spoiling everything, the last level sort of revisits a lot of the mechanics introduced earlier in the game, and they're represented by the various motifs of the levels that came before in a really satisfying way that sort of ties everything together.
And when you play those crazy levels, you're getting remixes of, that are banging.
They are banging.
And that's pretty cool. And I know when we were at PAX, was it last year? Jeff was just playing, like, ad nauseum in every line, trying to and doing things on the screen that just looked frankly impossible to me. Like I would never even attempt to do these things. Like, and it was funny. Because even then I was like, this is my game of the year, and I'm watching my best friend play it, and it does not look fun. It just looks painful. But did you really, when you engage in a game in that on that level, Jeff, is it fun, or are you just, is it the completionist in you, or what is it that's compelling you to do that?
It's a good question. I mean, I think discovering the different strawberries, I found that pretty fun because it's like you're kind of plumbing the mechanical depths of the levels. I would say some of the seasides, like I did like that level I was playing a lot. Like that was a fun level because it was challenging in the right way. What I do hate is the little red globs that go back and forth. Mm-hmm. Those guys drive me bananas, and the hard level with those, I hated to no end. But most of that stuff I really actually enjoy. Like, I don't know, there's something. It's a game that, like, I didn't like the challenges in Super Meat Boy, for example. I found those to be irritating. I like all the extra hard shit. Whereas in Celeste, I loved all of it because I felt like it was well balanced. I felt like it was rewarding in the right ways. So cool. Yeah, I do enjoy that difficulty. Sometimes I
like a celebration of the mechanics.
Exactly, yeah. It's, there were moments, of course, where I was just like, please let this thing stop. But a lot of the time, I was like, this is super cool. And doing it right feels extremely satisfying. It's like playing Pac-Man. You learn the pattern, and then somehow the pattern becomes its own reward.
True.
Yeah. But I'm glad we both enjoyed it, and I think the core of it was resonant for us in similar ways, but I think that maybe our particular approaches to completion and all that other stuff influenced how we kind of dealt with the latter half of playing the game.
Yeah. I still will occasionally go back, pick it up, and I'm reminded whenever I do how immediately satisfying the mechanics are. I just don't think I have it in me to do all that. It's really tough. Would it be fair to say that that's one of the toughest platformers you've ever done when you get to those seasides and all that?
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I think there's probably harder platformers out there.
I mean, sure, but
I'm not a master of platformers by any stretch, and I was able to figure that out. So I think it's tough, but it's not as tough as it necessarily appears. There are a few mechanics you have to figure out, but it's not too bad because you can continue from the beginning of every screen. Although the seasides are only 3 screens long. But it's hard, but it's not as bad as you might think. I was going to say something else about it, but I've lost it now. But I mean, again, I just think it's super well tuned. I think it's well balanced. Oh, I remember now. I was going to say that I recently restarted playing that game, and after you've been away for a while, I don't know, for me the emotions were just as powerful as they were the first time I played. So I recommend if you want to just restart the base game, it may be worth your time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll kind of jump off that and say, like, yes, I do. And by restart, I mean finish. Since I did really enjoy my time with it, it was kind of, I think, a little bit of like a glut of video game availability, plus travel, and I probably, and picking it up was a lot of fun. Playing that game, I had a good time. Obviously, not nearly as much as you guys. It's not my favorite game this year, but it definitely hangs on my list, even though I didn't finish it. Or
what is your favorite game of the year, Griffin?
Well, I'll tell you in a second, but I do appreciate you guys like really speaking to why Celeste is so important and so fantastic. And so it really makes me want to go back and kind of mop up what's still there. And I've heard that like the accessibility options are fantastic. If you're like me and you're bad at things, you can kind of ratchet it down to give you a little bit more buff if you just want to keep playing it and experiencing it.
When I've gone back, it reminds me of Fez, and not because it, has a pixel art style and kick-ass music, but because when you go back and you play Fez, it's like a warm blanket. It's like, I remember this feeling, and this feeling is this entire game.
Interesting.
Like you play Fez for 5 seconds, and you know what you're in for the duration of the time that you're going to keep playing Fez. And it's the same with this game. It's the same feeling. It's the same fun. There's no real lulls or anything. It's kind of, just that formula done masterfully for however long you choose to engage with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something about it does feel like transporting or otherworldly. I don't know. It really is like a warm embrace, like you said, Jamie, and just everything surrounding that game. I feel this affection for. Just the creators attached to it, the sentiment attached to it. It kind of reminds me of the sorts of feelings I got around Undertale when I was engaging with it. Like just feeling a lot.
Tell me more about this game.
No, just feeling a lot of warmth for the people involved, for the process that led to it, being created, for just all the different parts of the game.
That's interesting you say that, too, because the more you guys were talking about this, the more I'm like, that kind of reminds me of how I felt about Deltarune and picking up, kind of doing a deep, or kind of...
Doing it deep?
Doing it deep. Choke me out, do it deep. Kind of looking back on Undertale. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just a certain emotional... it's something about just small projects with heartfelt work.
Yeah.
They you can feel it, I don't know why, but you can.
Yeah.
Right on.
Anyway.
Well, so my favorite game is probably the opposite of Celeste. It is God of War 2018.
Yay! That's my number 2.
Yeah, baby.
One day I will play that game.
You should. You should. It's a fantastic game. My background is I came into God of War expecting very little since I greatly disliked the God of War franchise. I played the third one on the PlayStation 3 and thought, hey, that was neat. It was interesting. I liked that Kevin Sorbo was in it. That's about it.
Who wouldn't?
And this game kind of took the concept of Kratos, turned it on its head. Yes, there is definitely some tropes of conflicted father and kind of teeny tweeny boy child, and hey, not a whole lot of ladies in that video game either. But all those things aside, I had a fantastic time, playing it, doing the action slashing beat 'em up combats. Of course, it has a fantastic dodge, which is critical in any action game that I play. But the journey that you go on, I think, is something to be said. Oftentimes it's equated to be or it's put up against other open world games, and I never really felt like the game was that open world. It did feel very linear, which I prefer.
Yeah.
And because of that, it had a lot of the positive sides of an open world, like the ability to go kind of deviate slightly from the path or backtrack or find little nooks and crannies. But excuse me, it never. I don't know. It never felt like I was in this world where I could just do whatever I want and it was complete freedom. It felt like I was going somewhere because the story and the purpose of my character was so well defined. And in a world that we live in where you have these quote unquote open world games with these quote unquote characters, this one felt like it did both sides of that justice, where you have two characters who are driven by a mutual goal, and they never really, there's some slight deviations in it, but they're ultimately pursuing that, and your actions don't go contradictory to that goal. Mm-hmm. And the story and the way that you arrive at that also, keeps in pace and in motion, and leaves opportunities for, more narrative exploration. and one of the other things was, when that game came out, it was kind of right in the time. So this is just my personal piece here, right in the throes of me really getting into DMing a D&D campaign and playing God of War. It was really not disheartening. It made me just feel smaller, where I'm oh man, I thought I was telling a decent story, but this. The nuances, everything, every little character, every little moment, the mythos, the lore, the legend, everything was just so well designed there. And I think, Jamie, you had mentioned that you kind of fell in love with the Norse mythology via Neil Gaiman with your time in it, and I don't know. There's just, I think it did a lot of things right. and it's easy to kind of brush it off and say like, yeah, God of War is extremely excellent because the expectations that everybody brings is, oh, hey, it's God of War, and the developers turned it on its head, so now he's not an angry dude, he's a good dude. But I don't know, I think even that was more of like the icing on the cake. Like the whole journey, the whole exploration of those characters was fantastic. And the fact that they were, that Kratos was this boring ass PlayStation 2 shithead that's now kind of matured is just that little bit of extra. So I don't know what you said to your number 2. Take this away from me.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about when we spoke about the game on the podcast right when it came out was, I think this is the first game I ever played where the story is with you all the time. And yes, there are of course, it's a video game. There has to be segments where there's story playing out in front of you, and then there has to be segments where you're playing the game. And in other games, to use the term wrongly, it can feel somewhat schizophrenic. Like, it's just completely...
Jamie, no, you're a psychiatrist. Don't do it.
I know. I said to use the term wrongly, damn it.
No, I know.
But bipolar. Let's just continue with insulting patients and using these terms wrongly.
It can feel like a borderline.
Yeah, exactly. No, it feels just like wrong. It feels out of place to go from the story to the gameplay and back. I think this is the first game I ever played where the two always were in sync and reinforced each other. And the other thing that I want, really, in hindsight, I didn't have this thought when I played the game, but I'm having it now, is, and, I really, spoiler alert, I'm not a huge fan of Red Dead. It might open up to me as time goes on, but, when I play Red Dead, I am in awe. And I'm thinking, oh my god, this is incredible. This is the first time this has ever been done, and this sucks. And then when I played God of War, it was the opposite. I said just constantly, oh my god, this is incredible. I can't believe they did this, and it's awesome. And I have this dumb smile on my face the entire time. I knew that game was truly incredible when you first fight the stranger, and how long and effective that fight is, and how it weaves in and out of story and combat, and it's still tutorializing at that point. I just knew from that moment that this game was something else, and I really can't believe that they just weaved all that together. And I also think that the impact.
I'm really glad you brought up that intro fight with Baldur, because that, when I was playing that, I was like, fuck you, game. Like, fuck you, God of War. This is the same old, isn't it? Like, you're gonna put me in this dumbass fight, and I'm gonna do some Dragon Ball bullshit, and hey, here we are. And after the fact, after I kept playing it and I fell in love with it, the more I feel that I never felt those sentiments for those fights, but I like the critical analysis of that, saying like, hey, this is how it conveyed mechanics to you. This is where it made it feel like you were changing the world. This is like the nuance, and I loved the idea of being able to look back on something that I really actually hated and like be like, damn, I wish I had those emotions for it, because it just grossed me out at the time.
Well, you might have been a little ahead of me, because I didn't know, like, you were talking about the importance of the dodge. Up until that point in the game, I was not dodging. And that fight made me dodge for the first time. So I think
that's the first fight in the game you're talking about, right?
Well, no, there's a little opening area. Remember how you kind of go around, like you leave the house, you kind of go in a circle around the house.
There's like the troll fight?
No. Well, yeah, there is a troll fight, but there's, you're fighting there's like half an hour of mob fighting and the little troll mini boss before you fight the stranger,
okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
And that whole time I was not into the game. I was enjoying it. I was like, well, this feels good, but I don't need to do anything other than swing my axe, and I'm kicking butt here. And then the stranger was the first fight where I was like, he is wrecking me, and it's incredibly cinematic, and I'm like, story-wise, I'm into this. I want to know who the hell this guy is. And it was just so amazing. And the variety of scenes and backgrounds and throughout the game, and it really is such an epic, beautiful journey. And I hate to say this, but it really does showcase, like, if you're lucky enough and stupid enough like me to have a PS4 Pro and a 4K screen, it's kind of like the whole game is just jaw dropping.
Sure.
And it's even it took the crown away from oh God,
Uncharted.
red hair, no,
Mrs. Frizzle.
Gorilla Games.
Oh,
Horizon?
Dinosaur
Yes.
Zero Dawn's.
Man. Dinosaur Lady.
Yeah,
Man.
it took the crown away from Horizon for the I'm gonna try to convince you that I made a good investment. So look at this game.
Griffin, should we hold back this part of the podcast for the special 1% release?
Yes.
So yeah, I think I've talked enough about that game. Jeff, you should definitely try it. I think you would. I think anyone would enjoy this game. You may not love it, but
Yeah.
it's hard to. It's just got a lot of charm in a way that AAA titles rarely do.
Agreed.
It's definitely on my playlist. I just haven't played it. my brain hasn't been in a space where like AAA games have been granted quarter.
Fair enough. If you
I'll
get
get
there, I would recommend starting with this because it is very good, and the music is just fine. I mean, visually, it's a fantastic game. Again, not to beleaguer the point, but like it is a fantastic story and has some really cool moments, like even right at the outset of the game.
Yeah.
You know, mechanically, the axe is cool as shit. The puzzles are fine. I don't know. There's a lot to God of War, and it's if you're like, yeah, it's not for me. Like, it's because of the God of War pedigree that should just be put aside at this point.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'd like to step on the soapbox here for just a moment about is
Get on that soapbox.
Oh, it broke. Your box broke.
It's a rickety box.
Oh,
no.
man, I'd mash
dude, is
X to stand up from the box again. That
blue
voice
worms
actor
fly
is
out of it.
he is fantastic.
Say it again.
That voice actor is fantastic.
Yes.
But I just want to say, like, I know it's coming under a little bit of criticism because of like the tiredness of the dad archetype, but like I don't want to be like, well, unless you're a parent, you're not going to understand it. But like, there some of those ham-fisted moments of like, you like visually, Kratos is like reaching out for his child and like, I don't really know. It like draws his hand back, and you're like, dumb video game trope, dumb media trope, and you're like, yeah, but also, like, maybe there are times where you don't connect. And I thought that this game is like, maybe it is like barrier or like beginner entry level of like, you know, being
your dad.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think the game, all these games about being a parent are like, I'm a man working in the tech industry who doesn't connect to my children because I work 80 hours a day and I have somewhat retrograde ideas about masculinity. So this is a story I'm capable of telling.
I think that doesn't give this enough credit.
I think that's
played the
extremely
game, so.
reductive, Jeff. But
Oh yeah, no, I know.
but it's not wrong,
being,
and I think that there's
goofy.
merit to having that point come across too, where it's like, yeah, like in the same way that, you know, Celeste is doing something where it's like very openly embracing like self-care and self-help and realization about you know, potential, you know, mental issues or whatever. There is an attempt here by God of War to do something like that, where it is like, hey, this is what I can speak to, and I'm a white 30-year-old dude with a kid. And
Yeah.
it does a really good job with it, surprisingly.
I say that somewhat tongue in cheek.
Those moments hit. I'm not a dad, and I have no skin in that game. But all of those moments hit for me. I thought it was really well done. You know, I could easily see those moments going horribly, horribly wrong and feeling ham-fisted and without nuance. But this game is not that type of game. If this game is going to go out of its way to showcase a moment like that, it's going to do it really well. And it does. And I've heard those arguments too. A lot of those arguments come from people who have admittedly, they're making a good point, but have admittedly not played the game. Like Eda Jackson was making that point the other day. And then she was like, but I haven't played the game and I don't want to, in part because I don't want to hear this narrative, which is fine. But I get the sense that if those people really put the time in, they'd find that, the game handles those moments pretty deftly.
I think at the other side too, it's just
Eda Jackson's
like
gamer profile, and she hasn't beaten. I'm just fucking with you. Sorry.
Isn't that exactly what she's saying? She didn't play it.
Yeah, that's what she's saying. She hasn't played it at all.
No, I'm just fucking with you guys. Sorry, Griff. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think that there's the opposite coin or side of that coin where it's people did play it, and they're saying like it was a swing and a miss at trying to have any kind of like emotional resonance, and it's just like white dudes being white dads, and cis hetero white dudes, and you're like, yeah, but I mean also the folks that are criticizing that are also saying like, but that's not me, and I'm not interested in that, and I don't know, like elevating that station to kind of push that person to be a little bit better, I think is a good thing, and God of War does it. And yeah, it's more power to the straight white guy, but also like, hey, maybe it's time to be a little emotional or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that argument is probably, again, I speak as someone who's never played the game, so it's really kind of pointless for me to say this. I'm sure there's validity to my somewhat jokey remarks on some level, but it doesn't discount the fact that the game was affecting and told a story that's relatable, right? Like, it just means that there are other stories that could be told that could be relatable to other people,
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm glad that the beats it was going for landed so well for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot more. The story is more than that too. A lot of the moments that I thought were the best involved, the female character in the game, who I thought was very powerful and moving, and who was acted extraordinarily well, and who was mocapped like incredibly well, and played a really pivotal role. And without her, the game would just not work thematically. So there's more. There's a lot there. It's not just that one narrative hit over and over and over. It is varied, and the nature of their relationship of the father and son relationship changes so much over the course of the game that it doesn't even though it is the same plot point over and over again, it doesn't feel like it's the same because it's such a complex relationship.
I would say that a lot of media these days suffer from the Phantom Menace issue, which I've tried to explain before, where it's what is a good piece of media? Are there characters that are interesting, and if there are, how do they grow and change? From point A to point B, from start of story to end of story, and it's basic storytelling, and I'm sure everybody knows the arc of the how you should have a character grow, but the Phantom Menace, like the thing is, you say like, okay, we'll describe. I think this is like Red Letter Media or whoever did this years ago. But like, describe anybody from the Phantom Menace without using how they look or their job. And the joke is you have a hard time like putting adjectives to these people. Whereas if you take the original Star Wars trilogy and you apply the same treatment, you can come up with quote unquote characters. And one step further from that, I think, is okay. So now, if we look at a story, like tell me character traits of person at start of a story, and then tell me character traits of person at end of story. And I really think that in video games, we so rarely have this growth arc, and God of War is a phenomenal example of a character that you are inhabiting, starting at a certain like with certain traits and ending with vastly different traits, and two of them actually at the same time. And I think that's incredibly novel and respectable and fantastic to show that you can actually have like a good character and a good growth and a good arc in a medium like video games in 2019.
Go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
I just wanted the one last thing to add to that is what's even to me more important than that, and again to wrongly use this one is probably the most accurate, but still wrongly use the psychiatric term. To marry what you just said, Griffin, with violence that is not ego dystonic. So to marry that type of narrative and to that type of growth arc with violence that does not completely negate what the arc is trying to convey, and that is like such an impossible thing to do, because you're taking tropes of video games, a genre, like a medium based on functionally doing the same thing over and over again and being repetitive about murdering, and marrying that to a narrative format that takes more from movies and cinema. And those two things just so often just clash completely. But this is one of the few games where they do not. And it's so cool to see. And it's, I don't know, I think it's really cool. I think it's an achievement. What were you going to say, Jeff?
Oh, I was just going to say, if I could draw sort of an unearned point of comparison, because, again, I have not played God of War. Something I love about the story of Celeste is that it depicts, I mean, not in the same sort of diegetic way or whatever, like, keeping with blending story and gameplay, but it shows that growth arc in a way that, as you said, Griffin, as I think you rightly identified, few games really attempt to do with their characters. So if even though they are vastly different games, I think what makes the story satisfying for me in Celeste is that experience of growth that does play out through the game, that feels earned.
Sure, yeah, and a growth that's not just like my numbers got bigger.
Exactly, yeah, and it is growth that mostly plays out in story cutscenes, although it is kind of buttressed by the gameplay. But I do think that that's what makes that plot memorable for me. So to hear that God of War has that same kind of genuine experience of change is exciting to me, and seems like a point of similarity. So
cool,
yeah,
awesome. Well,
awesome.
Thank you, God of War.
Thank you.
Hey, we've talked about these two games for the past 40 or so minutes. Do we want to just cut this one off and talk about other stuff, maybe in written form or some other way?
That's fine. Everybody knows that nobody's actually going to write any stuff about God of the Year or Game of the Year, God of the Year.
God of the Year.
But yeah, if we want to end it here, totally fine. If you guys just want to maybe rattle off quick some of the other things that were games that were really good, if you have time for that, I think we don't need to go into a deep dive on every one of them.
Yeah. Jeff, what was your number 2?
My number 2, that's a really good question. I'm going to put Slay the Spire as my number 2, not because it's necessarily like the best game I've played, but just because I want to give it credit for being so enduring. And I've pushed this game on both of you guys. I don't think either of you have played it yet, but it's a deck building roguelike. Really reminds me of Dominion in a lot of ways. Jamie, that should resonate with you.
Yes.
And it's been in active development for over a year now, and it's pretty close to being done at this point. It'll probably release sometime in 2019. I think it'll be at its apex on iPad, probably. But it's
what about
great
Switch?
Switch would be great for it as well. I think it'll probably come to Switch as well.
I hope so.
It'll be great. It's great on PC right now as it is. I think it's really close to being done. It's just a really solid, fun game. It scratches that same itch that The Binding of Isaac did for me, and I think that amongst roguelikes, there are a lot of kind of pretenders to the throne, but it's rare to find a game that has that level of replayability, and I think Slay the Spire is one of those kinds of games.
Cool.
So it's worth your time. It's real fun.
Why don't we just do it, even if we don't talk deeply? I'm just curious because I want to hear everyone's top 3. So why don't you guys tell me if you're... Well, Griff, I only know you're 1. Why don't you... I want to hear you guys at least top 3.
Sure. You didn't read the document that I sent you? That you took all the stuff?
You know I can't read.
Don't rub it in, you mother grabber.
Sure. My number 2, which I think is a complicated number 2 for me, was Into the Breach. I don't ever want to play that game again. Because it's...
Did you do everything?
No, I didn't. Like, I beat it maybe twice, and it was so nail-biting and grueling and exhausting for my dumb brain that when I did it the first time, I was like, oh my god, I'm a genius. Like, I'm a genius. I did it. And I felt really, really proud. And I tried it again and had some struggles, and then succeeded, and was like, okay, that wasn't a fluke. Like, I proved it to myself that I could do it. But the desire to then go and play as each one of the different mech groups that have different functionality that then result in different strategy, like, it's not for me, man. Like, I loved this game because of the art style, because of the complexity, because of like the triage that you have to do in every battleground situation. But it's great. It's a great game. It's super cool. Music is fantastic, wonderful. I love the art, everything. It's just like I did it. It's like I ran that marathon and I never want to run it again because it was hard.
What's your number 3, Jeff?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say
go on.
Into the Breach. For me, I played that game to death. It doesn't have the legs for me that FTL did. Because you can do all the content in 20 hours, whereas FTL you can play in perpetuity, basically. It's still real good, though, and it's definitely on my list. But I guess my number 3 would probably be Hollow Knight, and I know it's not a game that initially released in 2018, although it came to Switch in June, and some more content came out this year, so I'm going to call it a 2018 game. I want to plug it because it's a Metroidvania that actually I think is real good, and I think a lot of Metroidvanias are lacking like one element or another. It's one of those games that has just superlative music, really good atmosphere. It's not afraid to be long. It's not one of those games you can just beat in 2 hours, and I think it's better for it. And it feels real good. It's kind of like Dark Souls in a way that isn't dumb. Because not just because there's a soul reclamation mechanic, but also because like the bosses are really cool. The world feels foreboding and treacherous.
And connected.
And connected, yeah. There's a lot of really interesting connections between different parts of the world. And
not just in terms of like route A to B to C, but like it feels like a real lived-in world.
Yeah, a real ass world.
Yes,
weird, quirky characters. There's lots of bugs, and they're cute and creepy. It's just real good. And I'm delighted to hear that Griffin has recently started playing it and enjoys it, because I know that he too can be a little picky about his Metroidvanias. So that's my number 3.
Yeah. Yep.
Griffin, quickly explain to me why your number 3 is Spider-Man.
Wait, you haven't talked about your number 2 though.
No, I have. My 1 is Celeste.
Oh,
my 2 is
your
God
2
of War
is
4.
God of War. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Spider-Man, right? There has not been a game that I have played in a while that was just so much fun to play it. It's as simple as that. Mechanically, swinging around the world was fantastic. The story beats were fine. The combat was fine. Just in the same way that you guys said that Celeste is more than some of its parts, I think that Spider-Man is very close to that, but leading the charge is just the movement and that swing and that navigation, that world traversal. In the same way that I put like a dodge on such a high pedestal in terms of mechanics, I think that Spider-Man's swing sets a new bar in terms of how you get around in a video game. And like when I think about it, it's like, yeah, the boss fights were so. The combat was fine. The story was a nice take on a Spider-Man story. There was a couple bad pieces with the stealth bits, but there was also a couple high points there too. It's just I don't know, like I platinumed the damn game. Like I've put the amount of time into it to do everything that the game offered up to me to do, because doing it was fun. Yeah, it was like a podcast kind of a game where I'm going and mopping up stuff. and listening to something in the background, but it's the kind of game where mechanically it's just so much fun to be there and existing there, and so compelling to kind of get the next little tidbit that's laid out there for you, and the next upgrade and the next gadget or what have you. So I just really loved Spider-Man.
It's really good. I think that one of the reasons why it's so much fun for me personally is it doesn't feel like, there's like a couple, maybe 5 or 6 different core mission types to engage with.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like they kind of like took those and like a pepper shaker just kind of sprinkled them onto the map. There is some kind of strange, weird science behind how and why they placed every little activity where they did.
I'm glad you feel that way, because I wholeheartedly disagree.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I really just think, a lot of times in that game, and I'm not that far, I'm somewhere between 10 and 20 hours into the game, but I haven't really engaged in that much story because I just get lost doing all those things, and I just go on a tangent, and
Sure.
it just never comes back.
And those things are cool, and they're fun.
It's the variety and where they're placed seems to me to be, I'm definitely open to hearing why I'm wrong about it, but to me it just felt perfect. Like, you do one of the science missions, and then those might focus on you doing a mechanic that's a complete one-off.
Sure.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then,
turn invisible
and then
for this hot second, and then press this button to not be invisible and activate this sphere. And you got to get your swing down, but it's all about fall timing or something. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And that might be really, that might be followed up by just your run-of-the-mill either car chase or robbery, and then that might be followed up with a slightly more in-depth, story adjacent mission. I just felt like there was a really nice variety, and the way that those were kind of peppered throughout the map made it so that I wasn't repeating the same thing over and over again. I wasn't trying to knock out all the same mission type at once. I was just kind of going where, the wind kind of took me. But what was, I guess your experience was pretty different there.
No. I think it's not at all. I think exactly what you're saying is what I felt. Going through those moments of like, oh, here's a nice deviation. Here's my next objective, but I got a little thing to do over here. Ooh, a little slice of something over here, huh? It's just, by the time, depending on how you approach that game, if you go into it and you're like, I'm going to clean up everything, and you attempt to clean it up, and then the next roster of activities show up and you're like, nope, fuck you, goodbye. Or if you get to the end of it and you're like, all right, I enjoyed this so much, I want to just keep playing and doing all the little missions, because you will get the flavor for every little ingredient that is in this spider dish. And it will not feel novel anymore. But again, I think that is a testament to the quality of the mechanics and the game itself. That I just wanted to stay there and clean it up, even though I could have just walked away at any point and been like, yeah, I finished it. It's fine. I went through the game, but I want to stay involved. So I'd be curious, Jamie, as you continue to play it, or if you don't, like if the thought just crossed your mind, like, do you want to go through it to see it to the end, or are you just going to go in there and destroy the whole thing and and fix all of crime in New York City?
The story, from what I've got of it, is good enough that I do want to see what happens. So I probably will finish it at some point. I don't know if I'll just marathon the main story, but it'll be hard to, because you're constantly, when you're not trying to 100% it really doesn't, or at least so far, it doesn't seem that repetitive. So it's hard to stay on the main track. But I think the story is good enough that I want to see it through.
Awesome. I hope you do.
So yeah, I just say my 3 really quick because I know Jeff has to go. But I didn't have it down until just now. But I am deciding right now that my number 3 is Astrobot, and it is so good. And I was talking to Griff about this before, but a lot of times when people discuss these PSVR games that are really, making a big splash, the question comes up, would this game be as good if it was not in VR? And the answer for a game like Astrobot is unequivocally no. This game would not hold up in, a normal 2D, game.
Mm-hmm.
But in PSVR, this game is absolutely magical, and it really does have the feeling of a Nintendo quality platformer. This game is like Mario Galaxy quality, and it just has that charm, and
it's definitely not the first time I've heard that. That's cool to hear that you feel that same way.
Also, stay tuned for more in-depth discussion on Boss Barrel 1%.
I was gonna say, when the fact that you can get the Astrobot and Moss, which was also on my list, and a PSVR for $200 is not like, it makes me feel like I'm eking more out of this console than I even thought I would get. And I think it's amazing that this thing exists at all. I think that, it certainly has its problems, but I was also telling Griff, I've sampled a lot of low quality VR. I had Google Daydream, I had Samsung Gear VR, I had Cardboard before that. This is a clear step above that. It's definitely not Vive or the other one,
the Rift,
but it is head and shoulders above those mobile only options. It's good VR, and it allows a game like Astrobot to be as excellent as it truly is. And I think $200 is like such. I was telling Griffin, you can buy a controller. You can be an idiot and buy a controller for that, or you can
is that not the price of like the Xbox Elite controller, like $160 or something like that?
I think it's $160, but you can get the scuffed PS4 controller for literally $200, or you could get this, and it's like, come on, you have to. It's totally worth it. Even it's so good, and you'll just have a smile on your face the entire time. And no, this game would not hold up if it was not in VR. But that, like we said, Griff, that's like saying, would Street Fighter 4 be as good if you played alone? No.
Exactly. Yes.
It's just kind of an inane question to ask, because it's part and parcel of the experience. And if you look at the experience as a whole, it really is just kind of, it's singular. Astrobot is a singular experience.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and I highly recommend anyone give it a shot.
Would John Sebastian Joust be the same if you didn't have Move controllers? You're like, you can't separate the game when it's so closely connected to that tool. So I'm glad you put that on there, Jamie.
Yeah,
and I want to just say, as someone who poo-poos VR a lot, like I'm super down with that. Like, I think a lot of experiences I had on the Wii are inseparable from that motion controller, as much as people hated it. So, yeah, if you're having an experience that feels that way, then VR has found its purpose, for you at least.
Yeah.
So, well said, Jamie.
Jeff is going to continue to Let's Tap on Let's Tap box.
Yeah, dog. It's my favorite game.
My dream, and I really think the only way that PSVR can survive is if when PS5 comes out, They don't revise the hardware. It's the same dang hardware, but you can buy just the headset, like maybe the breakout box is incorporated into the console, and they sell just the headset for like $100. I think that would be like the smartest move Sony could make, because at this point they've sold like 5 million of these things, and it would be silly for them to just let it die. But I fear that they will, and it'll be a big mistake. But in a way, it'll make Astrobot like the kind of collector's, experience that like 20 years from now people would be like, oh, you got to try Astrobot.
I really hope that VR doesn't die, because I'm with you, Jamie. I think that there's a lot of merit in continuing and pushing that forward, and I hope that it does stick around in the next iteration of consoles. Pulling a Jeff move right now and speaking to something I've never experienced. I think it would be.
Join the club, baby.
I want to have that experience push forward, and I think that now we've seen it, and in this conversation and in conversations that are happening for this year as well, like VR games are on lists, not of like out of novelty, but out of like, hey, this is actually a rad game. And it does work within this in this tool set, and it makes it all the better. So yeah. I want to see this continue to go forward, and I'm going to engage with it at some point here in the next couple weeks. So I think I would love again, not knowing what I'm talking about, but already just the thought of cords attached to my head to a other very expensive device that is mere feet away, that is making me very anxious right now just thinking about it.
I'm constantly dancing when I'm playing Astrobot. At the end of each level, he does a stupid dance, so I do the stupid dance, and Shannon is usually sitting like behind me, and she's constantly warning me to not like punch out my 4K Sony TV. But yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
I think that's a fantastic stopping point. On the other hand, if anybody has any last things that they want to say about anything that's lower on their list, I think we could maybe open that up right now, maybe for the next 10 minutes. Otherwise, we can shut her down, call her good for 2018.
Just adding on to that, I just want to say real quick that Moss and Tetris Effect, other VR games, are on my list, and that's not. I'm not, trying to justify my purchase. They are excellent games that anyone would enjoy, and also one that we didn't really talk about this year. Forza Horizon 4 is amazing. It is like it's one of those games that you play and you're like, I don't think they can do this any better, and if they do, I'll be very surprised.
Are you telling me they made card games fun?
I think so. And then of course Assassin's Creed Odyssey is just that game is just astounding to me. I'm gonna play that forever. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, Jamie's secret best game of the year, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Ain't nobody gonna appreciate Cassandra and her wonderfulness. And
I bought it, guys.
Oh!
I bought it on Steam sale over Christmas. I was like, Merry Christmas to me. I will probably not even install this game.
Oh.
No, install it and just play it, man. Just have fun.
But I don't have enough hard drive space.
Clean out the fridge.
I'm going to add some stuff too. Monster Hunter World, I think, deserves to be talked about.
Yes.
I thought it was your number 4.
Oh my god, when did that game come out? Like freaking January?
Yeah, man, that was a hell of a game.
It was,
and
we all played it together. We did dumb stuff.
Yeah, what a refreshing. I think when it first was announced, people were like, "Is this going to be Monster Hunter anymore?" It's Monster Hunter, as far as I can tell.
Oh, my thought was, this is going to be Monster Hunter. Ain't nobody knows what they're getting into. And
but it's Monster Hunter, except accessible and still dumb on the multiplayer front, but not too dumb. I really like
sufficiently
that game a lot.
Dumb. Yeah,
sufficiently dumb. But man, that's a good game.
It was.
What a cool thing, and they just announced an expansion, which is neat.
It's in my box of things near my PlayStation because I have physical discs. Where I'm like, this is something I keep up here because I might want to play it later.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm really excited that game did well. What a lovely. It's always lovely.
Do you know it was Capcom's best-selling game ever?
Wow.
I don't know ever. I knew it was a real big seller, but that's wonderful to hear. Like what a refreshing thing that this franchise, which is big in Japan, has finally found its footing in the US. Go ahead, Jamie.
Are you telling me that it sold more than Resident Evil 4?
Yes.
Wow, like including all of its iterations and everything?
I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole of like adjust for inflation type of things, but
no, I just meant like I'll look into it. But wow, I mean, either way, that's crazy.
Yes, what I've heard is it is Capcom's best-selling game ever.
Wow.
Keeping this train moving, on the subject of Japanese games migrating to the U.S., this one didn't make quite the splash, but still pretty good. Dragon Quest XI is worth people's time if they're willing to deal with the jank.
What makes it worth the time?
It's just mad polished and charming, and it doesn't feel as stupid as other Dragon Quest games to me. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, it draws you into its world. I don't know. I mean,
So is it like Monster Hunter in the way that it's taking away the bullshit and making it more accessible?
I would not say it takes away the bullshit because the first 5 hours could still go.
Oh no!
But after those first 5 hours,
could be said about Monster Hunter too.
Well, I don't know. I think that game is instantly exciting. The first 5 hours of Dragon Quest are not so great. Like when you're solo, when you only have 2 people in your party, it is not in its ultimate form. But when you get a full party and you turn on Draconian mode, because apparently the game is super easy otherwise, it's just really fun. It's tense. It's well balanced. It's interesting. The character build system is good. Yeah, it's just got a lot going on. So you guys should play it on Switch when it comes out.
I'm gonna pass.
All right.
I might do
sorry.
it. I might do it.
I just don't like Dragon Quest.
That's fair.
I liked Dragon Quest enough to give it a shot, and I am drawn into the world just even tangentially, just looking at screenshots and just watching clips of the game. There is some sort of ineffable quality it has that is charming. It looks, and I'm curious about it. So I'll probably take you up on that, Jeff.
Yeah, the gay guy's pretty cool. I like him. He's also a little bit tropey, but he's cool. I can get down with him. Yeah, that was cool. Also, other stuff that I like, which we should quickly talk about. Deltarune. Hey, Griffin, you want to talk about that because you just finished it real quick?
Yes, I do, and I don't want to go too far into it because we're running on the fumes here. But yeah, Deltarune, fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it's real good. It's a great
Has this guy made a game before?
Jokes aside, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing.
It was made by Toby XOF. Did you see what I did there? That's a deep cut right there. Only true gamers understand. Whoa,
You killed Griffin.
He loves it.
He loves it. He loves it more than he loves anything.
Oh my god!
How long
Thank
does
you.
that game take to play?
That's so good.
How long is
about
Undertale?
2.5 hours. 2.5 hours, I'd say.
I'm talking about Undertale.
Oh, Undertale? I played through a couple endings in 6 hours.
And can I play that? Should I play it on the Vita or on the Switch?
Play it on
PC.
Switch. Or PC. PC is probably the best way to play it, but
Play
you
it
can
on
play it
PC.
on Switch.
Why not Vita?
Is that a PS?
I can't imagine how they do some of the things they do on not a PC. So I would recommend doing a PC.
They bring up the on-screen keyboard.
Oh, God.
Your
It's
question,
weird. It's
weird.
gross.
Oh, no. Okay, PC it is. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to derail you.
No,
No,
it's fine.
you're fine.
Deltarune, it's very intriguing. I think Undertale is required reading, in my opinion, even though it's not truly required reading, but it enhances the experience. It's cool. There's a
You
lot
mean
of
to
promise
play
there.
Deltarune?
Yes.
I thought you just meant in video games in general. Yeah, I think
No,
I think Undertale is required reading for video games in general. I think it does have stances and mechanics and narrative and systems that is a game that everybody needs. It's a Mario level of like you need to play this game to understand the medium of video games at this point. And Deltarune, I think is a fascinating iteration. Not even iteration, but a fascinating juxtaposition of Undertale.
Yeah, for sure. It's. I'm not sure that it's going to be required reading for the medium in the way that Undertale is.
Right.
To borrow, kind of what you've done, Griff. But it's interesting, and there's a lot going on that I can really get behind, and I'm really excited to see this project grow over time. And I think as a standalone product, it's already good.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil anything for Jamie, but I think that if you to look at games historically and as a product of people that make them, the fact that Deltarune was in development alongside, and we say development, it's like somebody's project they're working on while they're working on another project, but the idea that this game was being made alongside Undertale is fascinating, and what Undertale has turned into from that time, and then to have this game come out and be like, hey, it's fantastic because one, it makes sense that this would potentially be your starting point, and then you hone that down into being a more black and white linear experience of Undertale, or I shouldn't say linear experience, but like linear storytelling, and then you take the concepts that are a little bit more gray and then introduce them in a game afterwards, even though in reality you were probably working in the gray before and then decided to take that and make it its own thing. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I would love to have a discussion later after Jamie plays Undertale about.
I feel like
how
I
that
really
stuff
have
goes.
to. Like I never really felt like I had to until very recently, but
You have to.
God, man, you gotta.
You have to.
I know.
real
I know.
It's not just Doge jokes and internet humor. There's a lot there to it.
It's got a heart. Play it
Gotcha.
before Nintendo releases Mother 3, which they're totally doing next year.
Wait, really?
No.
Oh, God.
They're never releasing it.
I
Mother
know.
3 is
I was
secretly hidden in Smash.
That would be. I would buy Smash if that were true.
It's the final spirit. All right, guys. I gotta go. I gotta say
Yeah.
goodbye.
That's fine. I think we did
I'm
it.
good to stop here.
Yep.
Sweet. I think we did games, guys.
Did
did
games.
it.
Good games this year.
Yeah.
Enough good games. Not a ton of.
You didn't even play the
AAA
good ones.
Monstrosity amazingness, but good stuff. 2018 did good.
I felt like there were fewer games than 2017, but I felt like these games this year were equally as impactful and made up for that lack of volume with punch.
Yeah.
Also, we're busy MFers and couldn't play as much. I think that also is part of it.
Also,
But yeah,
fuck Mario Tennis Aces.
On that note, this is where we end. Fuck Mario Tennis Aces.
That's right. That's right. Next podcast, fucking worst games of 2018
Yeah,
and 17.
I'm in for it.
All right, guys.
guys.
This has been super
I gotta
fun.
go.
Yep.
See you next year.
Only on the secret channel, the 1%.
1%, baby. All right. I'm gonna sign off. See y'all later.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. See you next year.